So you remember how just recently we were talking about the gun buyback program that Canada was improvising? And I say improvising because literally they didn't have a structured plan on how to actually convince law abiding citizens, hunters, gatherers, sportsmen, or women, not judging, how to potentially steal their guns and buy them back so we could send them off to Ukraine. I'm not kidding. That was the actual proposal told by Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc. And now things have turned in even more to the worst because of new revelations that are being pointed out on this. So, for example, from CTV News, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police says they have lost 205 firearms since 2020, since the original drafting of the gun buyback program, which ironically came after the Uvalde, Texas shooting that happened miles away. On the other side of the United States, Canada decides, hey, this would be a great time to, take the law-abiding guns away. And as I stated before, this is an issue that I've been on the fence extremely about. I've been back and forth and doing tailspins and going in circles on, what the best result of this is. And I think I've come down to the conclusion that there is no way to ban guns. I think it's absolutely stupid that we have these gun bans implemented because unless there's more guns on the street per capita than there is people on the planet. And considering the fact that now we're printing 3D guns, just like the United Healthcare CEO assassin did, there's no way to possibly do this. And I think that as people, we should come together to find ways to decrease the amount of violence rather than trying to ban it altogether because it's physically impossible. So, that's a scathing headline there. And here's the report from CTV National News discussing on the fact that the RCMP purposely lost all these guns. The guns that they're trying to buy back and then sell it off to Ukraine. So it seems like their proposal is really, really backfiring and people are waking up to this. Take a look.
Have lost more than 200 guns in the last 4 years. The questions still remain on where have those guns gone and whether Mounties will be held responsible. CTV's Kamal Karamali joins us now. And Kamal, what do we know about these lost guns?
Hi, Heather. Yeah, so the exact number is 205 guns lost or missing by the RCMP since 2020. So let's break those numbers down. That includes 122 handguns, more than 50 shotguns, more than 20 rifles, 3 submachine guns, and 2 machine guns reported lost from RCMP detachments across the country in the last 4 years. Nearly half of those guns were lost in 2021 when 99 firearms were reported missing that year.
If I were in charge of the RCMP, I certainly would launch a criminal investigation on every single one of those missing firearms.
The RCMP saying very little in response, Heather, is saying it can only determine specifically if a firearm was lost by a service member. Rather, it cannot determine specifically if a firearm was lost by a service member. Also not known if the firearms were ever recovered.
So that was the news report, and obviously the RCMP is not going to comment on it. Because of the fact, if we actually commented on the RCMP losing those handguns, then it kind of diminishes the proposal of the gun buyback program. Because, we're going to keep it off the streets of not killing each other in Canada. We're going to keep them off the streets, give them to the government. They're going to keep it safe. But also we're going to send it off to Ukraine so they go kill and slaughter over there. The irony doesn't just write itself. It's absolutely hilarious, this whole proposal. So, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police says they have lost 205 firearms since 2020, including more than 120 handguns and at least 5 fully automatic weapons like machine guns. The data, which was obtained through an access to information request, also shows that nearly a dozen RCMP firearms have gone missing so far this year. In total, 122 handguns, 55 shotguns, 23 rifles, 3 submachine guns and 2 machine guns have been reported lost by the RCMP detachments across the country since 2020. Canadians are largely prohibited from using or acquiring machine guns and submachine guns, which are fully automatic and capable of rapid fire. Nearly half the guns were lost in 2021, when a staggering 99 RCMP firearms were reported missing, including 3 fully automatic weapons. There were also 25 lost firearms in 2020, 44 in 2022, 26 in 2023, and 11 in the first 7 months of 2024. Really making the case of, gun safety. And they say that hunters are the dangerous ones. Hunters, we need to take their rifles away. The ones that keep it locked, safe, probably in their cabins up north somewhere that only they have access to. I'm just assuming because I have hunters within my family, so that's what they do. The data was obtained and shared exclusively with CTV News by Matt Malone, a government secrecy researcher and scholar with the Bastille School of International Affairs in Waterloo, Ontario. Malone is also the founder of Open by Default, a digital database that contains more than 5.2 million pages of documents released through Canada's Access to Information System. In response to Malone, the RCMP's Access to Information Office said it cannot determine specifically if a firearm was lost by a service member. The RCMP is Canada's federal police force and employs more than 30,000 people, including more than 19,000 police officers. Between 2000 and 2019, an additional 601 firearms were reported lost by police, including 15 machine guns and submachine guns, according to a previous RCMP Access to Information request. The RCMP did not immediately respond to a request for comment from CTV News. It is not known if any of the lost firearms were eventually recovered or if charges or disciplinary measures have resulted in their disappearance. Canada strongly regulated fully automatic rifles for decades due to the belief that such weapons are particularly dangerous, as they would allow criminals to commit mass shootings or overpower police. So the best solution is to buy all that back, ban it across our nation, and send it off to a bunch of neo-Nazis in the most corrupted nation, Eastern Europe, to cause mass slaughter over there. Do you see how hysterically ironic all this is? That they're going to take it away from hunters and sportsmen or women. They're going to take legally binding, that gone through the loopholes, gone through the background checks, take it away from them to send it off to a bunch of neo-Nazis to slaughter each other, in the hopes that it will decrease gun violence. And as I stated, the principal matter is we cannot physically stop gun violence total, but we can find measures to decrease the need and necessity of killing each other with guns. We can find resources to lower down the rate of gun violence. We can look into mental issues. We can look into poverty. We can look into why people become so violent. We can look into pharmaceuticals. But having this buyback ban is not feasible. It is not feasible whatsoever. And considering they want to take that and send it off to Ukraine, absolutely hilarious. Canada strongly to commit mass murders or overpower police. Legal historian and gun expert Blake Brown told CTV News, this makes the loss of those firearms especially concerning. Brown is a history professor at St. Mary's University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and the author of Arming and Disarming, A History of Gun Control in Canada. Given the numbers of firearms possessed by police, it is perhaps unsurprising that a small percentage of guns go missing each year, either because they are been misplaced or stolen, Brown said. I think that Canadians should always be concerned anytime that legal firearms are possibly being stolen or lost, as there is a chance that such guns could be used in criminal activity. When it comes to public safety, Brown says the number of lost or stolen civilian firearms in Canada has a far greater concern. In 2022 alone, there were 2,086 theft incidents where at least one firearm was stolen, down from 2,196 in 2021, according to Statistics Canada. In 2022, stolen firearms were used in at least 8 homicides. With the millions of firearms in circulation in Canada, there is bound to be some that are stolen, despite Canada's safe storage rules, Brown said. The RCMP should be held to a very high standard in terms of safeguarding its own firearms. But the bigger threat to public safety in Canada is the theft or loss of privately owned firearms. So, here's a little graph here of just how much they have lost over the past few years. So here's 2020, here's 2024, and you can see here, the chart here, they're describing all the different variations of weapons and guns, handguns, rifles, shotgun, submachine gun, and just regular machine guns. And you can look at the chart here. So 2024, they state that data is incomplete, obviously because we're still in 2024. But look at 2021, 66 handguns, 12 rifles, 18 shotguns, 99 machine guns, and a certain percentage of submachine guns. I don't know the number because it's not shown in the graph there. And isn't it interesting that in 2021, that was the height of the pandemic. That was when people were told to shut everything down. So there was not a lot of people on the streets. And also at the same time, they brought in a bunch of migrants, a bunch of illegal immigrants, stormed into this country, undocumented, unvaccinated, and we have no awareness of their previous history. All of a sudden, these handguns start disappearing from the RCMP. And all of a sudden, around that time, was where we saw the increase of crime. So again, as a principal rule, because I've been going around in circles trying to understand how we can decrease gun homicides and violence and gang activity and so on and so forth, I think the principle of the fact is we cannot ever totally ban guns. Because even if we had a gun ban, unless you're willing to implement that globally, which is physically impossible, it is never going to happen. It is never going to prevent gun fatalities. But there are measures in place that we as a society can sit down and discuss as grown adults to talk about what makes people turn violent, what makes people turn towards a gun and fire at another civilian. There are measures that we could be looking into, like mental health, like pharmaceuticals, like the media. Because I have always stated that the media plays a huge proportion in why people become so more violent. Because you're sitting there watching TV, seeing all these stories being propagated, being fear-mongered, and turning yourself into this paranoid state to think that everyone's out to get you. So we could be looking and examining those factors to decrease the numbers. But we're not doing that. Instead, we're going to take the firearms from law-abiding citizens that are out to just hunt or sport or even just self-protect themselves, take that away from law-abiding Canadians and send them off to the most corrupted nation in Eastern Europe to get us involved in nuclear war. And do you think that firearms stolen by Canadians is going to retaliate against a superpower like Russia that has nuclear missiles? Do you think that at all this is feasible? Do you think at all this is going to work out and favorable for anybody? No, it's not. Like I said, the hilarious irony cannot write itself because I can't write anything more hilarious than what we're already seeing right now. Just how unbelievably crazy it is here in Canada that not only are we implementing this buyback program to hustle it off to a corrupt nation full of neo-Nazis to implement World War III, but also in the fact that our own law enforcement that's implementing to do this gun buyback program is missing their handguns, is missing their own collection, their inventory. Not really working well for public safety in Canada. And that's why people are very concerned and very distraught on government agencies like the RCMP in order to protect themselves.